I had been planning this for weeks. Mark's birthday was coming up, and I knew I had to do something special for him, something he'd really appreciate. We'd been together for 5 years, and honestly, our relationship had started to feel a bit stale. Not that I didn't love him. He was a good man, but things just weren't the same anymore. The spark was gone, and I couldn't ignore it. I had tried everything to bring back the excitement, but it was like trying to breathe life into something already dead. So, I came up with the idea of giving him a unique gift, 3 hours of golf at a fancy country club. I knew Mark had been talking about trying golf for a while, but never got around to it. I figured it would be a way to get him out of the house, let him have his own time, and maybe give me a little break too. I arranged everything, booked the time, even had a golf pro lined up to teach him. I thought it was perfect. But there was a catch. I had been seeing someone else, Jack, for the past year. It started off as something small, just a couple of harmless flirtations, but it quickly became more. Jack was exciting. He made me feel alive in a way that Mark no longer did. With Jack, there were no routines, no mundane conversations about bills or what to have for dinner. Every moment felt new, and honestly, I craved that. So, when I planned the whole golf day for Mark, I figured it was the perfect opportunity to spend the afternoon with Jack. I told Mark that I had arranged the golf, and I would just be at home, relaxing while he was out. That way, I wouldn't have to hide anything. Jack could stay over, and we could enjoy some time together without any interruptions. I never even considered that things might go wrong. The day arrived, and I was so excited. Mark was off to the golf course, and I had just enough time to prepare everything. Jack showed up at my place, looking as good as always. He had this grin that always made me melt. We started with a glass of wine, and soon enough, we were chatting and laughing like old friends. It was exactly what I needed. We spent about an hour like that, talking, laughing, and just enjoying each other's company. I felt free, like I was finally doing something for myself. There was no guilt, no shame, just pure enjoyment in the moment. The whole time, I kept glancing at the clock, knowing Mark wouldn't be back for a while. Everything was going according to plan. But then, about an hour into our little hangout, I got a text. It was from Mark. My stomach sank as I read it. The golf session got cancelled. I'll be home in 30 minutes. I couldn't believe it. What were the chances? This wasn't supposed to happen. Mark was supposed to be gone for hours, giving me and Jack plenty of time to be alone. I quickly glanced at Jack, and he gave me that look. Like, what are we gonna do now? I felt the panic set in. I couldn't let Mark catch us together. I quickly texted Mark back, trying to sound casual. Oh no, that's too bad. Maybe we can do something else when you get home. But I knew it was pointless. Mark wasn't gonna believe that. I could already feel the tension building up in my chest. Jack, noticing my anxiety, leaned in and whispered, "You want me to leave?" His voice was calm, but I could see the concern in his eyes. I didn't want him to leave. I needed him there. "No," I said quickly, forcing a smile. "Stay. Let's just figure this out." I wasn't sure how, but I was determined to get through this. The doorbell rang and I jumped. Mark was home. My heart started racing. Jack stood up from the couch, and I quickly grabbed his arm, pulling him toward the kitchen. "Stay in the kitchen for now," I whispered, trying to keep my voice steady. I took a deep breath and walked to the door, opening it just as Mark stepped inside. He looked confused. "Hey, you okay?" he asked, scanning my face. He must have sensed something was off. "Yeah, of course. Just surprised you're back so soon," I replied, forcing a smile. "The golf session got cancelled. You mentioned something about that, right?" Mark didn't look convinced. He frowned. "Yeah, but I figured it'd be better to spend the day with you instead." He stepped inside, looking around. "Where's Jack?" I froze. That was the moment. My stomach flipped. He just left," I stammered. "I think he had to go, but he'll be back later." I wasn't sure why I said that. It didn't make any sense. But I had to cover myself. Mark didn't seem convinced. He gave me a curious look, but he didn't say anything more. Instead, he walked into the living room and sank down onto the couch. "So, what now?" "I thought we could spend the afternoon together. Maybe get something to eat." I stood in the doorway for a moment, still trying to figure out what to do. I could feel my pulse pounding in my neck. I needed to get Jack out of the house, quickly. But at that moment, I could hear the sound of footsteps coming from the kitchen. Jack. I felt my heart stop for a second. He had no idea what was going on. I could already see his silhouette in the doorway, and when he stepped into the living room, I swear the room went silent for a second. Mark stood up abruptly, his face turned from confusion to shock in an instant. "What the hell?" he muttered under his breath, his gaze flicking from me to Jack. I could feel the tension in the air thickening. My stomach churned. Everything felt like it was spinning out of control. Jack, sensing the shift, awkwardly took a step back. "Mark, it's not what you think." I was frozen. I couldn't move. My heart was in my throat. Mark looked back at me, his expression a mix of hurt and anger. "You," he said, his voice quiet but sharp. "You were cheating on me?" His eyes were wide, his face pale. It wasn't just shock anymore. It was betrayal. I couldn't speak. I had no words. Everything I had been trying to hide for the past year, all the lies, the moments with Jack, everything came crashing down in that one terrible moment. Mark looked from me to Jack, then back to me again, his face tightening with rage. Without another word, he turned and walked out, slamming the door behind him. The sound echoed in my ears as I stood there, completely paralyzed. I stood there for a long time, staring at the door Mark had just slammed behind him. My body was frozen, and my mind was racing. I could still feel the air vibrate with the force of the door shutting, as if my entire world had just been slammed shut too. I looked at Jack, standing awkwardly in the living room, his hands shoved into the pockets of his jeans. His face was unreadable, but I could see the tension in his shoulders. He'd seen what just happened. Seen the destruction I'd set in motion. "Liza," he started, his voice low, hesitant. I couldn't meet his eyes. I didn't know what to say. What could I say? I had just let everything I built with Mark crumble in seconds, and now I was standing there with Jack, trying to piece together the mess. "Do you want me to leave?" Jack asked softly, his eyes searching mine. I shook my head, barely able to find my voice. "No, stay. Please." I hated how desperate I sounded, but I couldn't imagine being alone right now. I needed something to hold on to, even if it was just this moment with him. Jack stepped closer, but I quickly turned away, pacing back to the kitchen. I needed space. I needed to think, but the reality of what just happened hit me in waves. My hands were shaking, my heart still pounding, and I couldn't stop replaying the look on Mark's face when he saw us. The confusion, the pain, and then the anger that twisted his features. I had never seen him like that before. I leaned against the counter, trying to steady myself. Jack's footsteps followed me, and I could feel him standing behind me, close but not touching. The silence stretched out between us, thick and suffocating. After a moment, Jack spoke again, his voice gentle but firm. "You can't keep running from this, Liza. You know that, right?" I closed my eyes, taking a deep breath. Of course I knew that. I had known it from the moment I first kissed him. This would never stay hidden forever. The lies always catch up with you. "I didn't mean for this to happen," I said, my voice cracking. "I didn't want it to be like this. I thought I could have it all. I thought I could keep pretending." Jack didn't say anything at first. I could feel him staring at me, his eyes soft, almost sympathetic. But I couldn't look at him. I couldn't face him, knowing that I was the one who caused all of this. Finally, after a long, painful silence, he sighed. "You've been unhappy for a while, haven't you? I could tell. But you still chose him. You chose to marry him." There was no accusation in his voice, just a quiet understanding. I turned around to face him, my heart aching. "I don't know why I did it," I whispered. "I loved him, Jack, I did. But somewhere along the way, I stopped feeling that. And I didn't know what to do with that. I didn't know how to fix it. And then you came along. And I couldn't help it." Jack's expression softened, and for a moment, I thought maybe I could just let it all spill out, but I didn't want to. I wasn't ready to confront the truth fully. Not yet. "You don't owe me an explanation, Liza," Jack said, his voice low. "But you need to deal with this. You can't pretend it didn't happen." I nodded, barely able to process his words. Of course, I knew I had to deal with it. But in this moment, all I could feel was the loss. Mark was gone, maybe forever. And I was standing there, trying to figure out what I had done. Jack stepped closer, reaching out to touch my arm gently. "We need to figure out what happens next," he said softly, as if he was asking more than telling. I pulled back slightly, shaking my head. "I don't know what happens next. I don't even know where to begin." I could feel the tears welling up in my eyes again, but I quickly wiped them away. I couldn't break down. Not yet. Jack didn't push further, but I could see the concern on his face. He didn't want me to fall apart, and I was trying to hold myself together. But in that moment, It felt like everything was slipping through my fingers. I heard the sound of my phone vibrating on the counter. I almost didn't want to look at it, but I knew it had to be Mark. I glanced at the screen, and sure enough, it was him. There was no way I was answering that right now. Should I get that? Jack asked, gesturing toward my phone. No, I said quickly, my voice tight. It's probably Mark. I can't talk to him yet. Jack nodded, but I could see the conflicted look in his eyes. He wanted to say something, but he didn't. The silence between us was almost unbearable. I knew I had to face what I'd done. I had to call Mark, explain everything, apologize, but I couldn't bring myself to do it. Not yet. A few minutes passed and Jack spoke again, his tone more serious now. Lisa, I don't want to pressure you, but you need to understand something. I care about you, and I'm not going anywhere. But I'm not going to be your escape. I'm not going to be the guy you run to when things get hard. If you want to be with me, you need to make a real choice, but you also need to fix what you've broken with him. I looked at him, trying to understand. His words hit me harder than I expected. For a moment, I thought I could just stay with Jack, forget everything else, and move forward, but I knew it wasn't that simple. I know. I whispered. I know. I don't know how to fix it. I don't know if I can. Jack didn't answer right away. Instead, he stepped back and looked at me with that same quiet intensity. I could see the sincerity in his eyes, but I also saw the doubt. I could feel him pulling away, and it scared me. He sighed again. I'm not saying you have to choose me right now. But you have to face this, Lisa. You have to figure out what you really want. And what you're willing to lose. I nodded slowly, my mind spinning with everything he said. I know. I need time. I need time to think. Jack gave me a soft smile, his eyes still filled with that same mix of tenderness and concern. Take all the time you need, he said. But don't take too long. As Jack left the kitchen and I stood there alone, I felt more lost than ever. I had made my bed, and now I had to lie in it. The rest of the evening passed in a blur, like I was watching someone else's life unfold in front of me. Jack left not long after our conversation, leaving me alone in the house with my thoughts. I felt a strange sense of emptiness that was hard to shake. It was as if the walls around me had closed in, trapping me in a situation I never thought I'd end up in. Mark was still on my mind, but this time it wasn't just about him being hurt. It was about everything that had led up to that moment. Everything I had done, every choice I had made. I had pushed him away, but I wasn't sure if I was ready to face the consequences of that. I couldn't stop replaying his face when he walked in on us. The confusion, then the slow realization, followed by the quiet devastation in his eyes. It was like seeing everything I'd taken for granted crumble in an instant. I had never seen him look at me like that. He had always been so steady, so reliable, and now, I had broken him in a way that couldn't be fixed with a simple apology. I knew I had to call him. There was no way around it. But the thought of hearing his voice, the pain in it, was almost unbearable. I thought about what I would say. What could I say? Nothing would undo the damage. Nothing would take back that moment when I betrayed him. I glanced at my phone, the screen still showing Mark's missed calls and unread messages. They were from earlier in the day, but I hadn't been able to bring myself to open them. I knew that if I did, I would be faced with everything I was trying to avoid. But now, I didn't have a choice. I had to face the music. I hit the call button, and it rang. My heart beat louder with every second. Liza. Mark's voice came through the line, raw and tired. He sounded like he hadn't slept. Like he'd been up all night replaying the scene in his head. I could almost hear the exhaustion in his words. Why? I don't know what to say, Mark. I never meant for this to happen. My voice was shaking, and I hated that he could hear it. I don't know how we got here. I don't know how I let this happen. You don't know. You don't know, he repeated, his voice rising with frustration. Lisa, I'm sitting here, trying to make sense of what I saw. Trying to understand why the woman I trusted, the woman I loved, was in bed with another man while I was out trying to do something nice for us. I can't even look at you right now without feeling sick. His words hit me like a punch in the stomach. I wanted to apologize, to explain everything, but nothing felt right. Nothing felt like it would make up for what I had done. How could I explain how everything with him had changed without making it sound like an excuse? I'm sorry, I whispered. I'm so sorry, Mark. I never wanted to hurt you. I don't know anymore. He was silent for a moment, and I could hear him take a deep breath. I don't think you understand the damage you've done, he said, his voice quieter now, but still sharp with pain. This isn't just about what happened today, Lisa. This is about everything. The lies. The distance. The fact that you never gave me a chance to understand what was happening to us. And now this. I don't even know who you are anymore. I didn't want to hurt you, I repeated, my voice barely audible. I don't know how to fix it. I don't even know where to start. But I'm not asking you to forgive me right now. I needed you to hear that I'm sorry. Mark sighed, and there was a long pause. You don't get it. You don't get that there's nothing left to fix. I can't keep pretending like everything is okay when it's not. This was the breaking point, Lisa. You've made your choice. I felt a lump form in my throat, but I didn't speak. I knew what he was saying. I had been afraid of this, of facing the reality of what I'd done. I need to go, Mark said, his voice suddenly colder. I can't do this. Not now. Not with you. I opened my mouth to say something, anything, but the words wouldn't come. I heard the line disconnect, and I was left there, holding my phone to my ear, alone in the silence. I sank down onto the couch, my hands trembling. My heart felt heavy, like it had been shattered into a million pieces, and I couldn't even begin to pick them up. I knew I couldn't undo what had happened. I had crossed a line I could never uncross. But I couldn't shake the feeling that, deep down, I hadn't been truly happy for a long time. Maybe I'd been lying to myself. Maybe I'd convinced myself that staying with Mark was the right choice, even when my heart wasn't in it. Maybe I'd been running away from the truth all along. I thought about Jack, about the way he made me feel, about how he seemed to fill the emptiness I had been carrying around. But now, even as I tried to tell myself that I had made the right decision by being with him, I couldn't shake the feeling that I had just traded one kind of emptiness for another. I needed to figure out what I wanted, what I really wanted. But I didn't know if I could ever fix what I destroyed with Mark. I didn't know if he would ever forgive me. And, honestly, I wasn't even sure I deserved forgiveness. The rest of the night was a blur. I didn't hear from Mark again, and I didn't reach out. I didn't know what to say. I didn't know what to do. The uncertainty was eating me alive, and I couldn't stop thinking about everything that had just fallen apart. By morning, I had made up my mind to leave the house and try to get some perspective. I needed space to think, to clear my head. I wasn't sure where I was going, but I knew I couldn't stay in that house and pretend everything was fine. I grabbed a bag, threw some things together, and walked out the door, not knowing when or if I'd come back. I had no idea what the future held, but I knew I couldn't stay there any longer. As I drove, I thought about Mark, about the man I had loved, and about how much I had hurt him. Maybe this was the end. Maybe I would never see him again. Maybe I didn't deserve to. But the one thing I did know for sure was that I had to face whatever came next, alone or with Jack, it didn't matter. I had made my choices, and now I had to live with them. The drive was long, but it gave me time to think. Time to process everything that had happened. I hadn't expected any of it to unfold the way it did, at least not so fast, so painfully. In my head, I kept replaying that moment when Mark walked in and saw us together. His face, the shock, then the heartbreak. It was seared into my memory, and no matter how hard I tried to push it away, it came back every time I closed my eyes. I couldn't stop thinking about what I had done to him. I had built this life with Mark, trusted him, shared everything with him. We weren't perfect, but we were comfortable together. At least I thought we were. And now, that comfort was shattered, and it was all my fault. I had to face it, I had betrayed him. And what was worse, I had betrayed myself. I had let things spiral so far out of control that I couldn't even remember when I stopped caring about our marriage. How did I let myself fall into this trap? How did I let Jack get so close, so deep inside my head, that I lost sight of the person who had been my partner for years? I tried to focus on the road ahead, but my mind kept drifting back to Mark. He didn't deserve this. He didn't deserve to be treated like that. He didn't deserve to be hurt by the woman he loved. And yet, here I was, running away from the very consequences of my actions. Eventually, I pulled into a small diner off the highway. I wasn't sure what I was doing there, but something about it felt like a place where I could disappear for a while. It was quiet, the kind of place that didn't ask questions. I needed that. I needed space to think, to breathe, without anyone judging me or making me feel like I was broken. I sat at a booth in the corner, ordered coffee, and just stared out the window for what felt like hours. The silence around me was comforting, But it also made me feel more alone than ever. It was a strange feeling, like I was being swallowed up by the consequences of my own choices. I looked down at my phone, hesitated, and then opened the messages from Mark. The last one was from a few hours ago. "Mark, I can't do this, Lisa. I need to figure things out. I don't know what you want, but I can't keep pretending. I can't live in this lie anymore." I swallowed hard, reading the message over and over. What did he want from me? What did I want from him? I had no answers, just a deep sense of regret gnawing at me. I sat there for a while, the weight of everything sinking in. I couldn't run from this forever. I couldn't keep avoiding the inevitable. I had to face the fact that my life was completely different now. My marriage was over, and I had no idea what was next for me. A few minutes later, my phone buzzed again. This time it was Jack. "Jack, Liza, we need to talk. I don't want you to think that I'm just some escape. I care about you, but I need to know where your head is at. I'm not going to be your fallback." I stared at the message for a long time, my heart pounding in my chest. It was like I was caught between two worlds. Mark, who had been my life for so long, and Jack, who was this bright, exciting distraction from the pain. But both of them represented something I wasn't sure I was ready for. Neither one of them was the answer. Neither one of them could fix what was broken inside of me. I typed out a response, then deleted it. What was I supposed to say? That I didn't know what I wanted. That I was terrified of losing everything. That I had no idea who I was anymore. I stood up and walked outside, feeling the cool air on my face. The small town around me seemed so far removed from everything I had left behind. It felt surreal, almost like I was in a different world, a world where I could start over, where I didn't have to face the wreckage of my decisions. But I knew better. I knew that eventually, I would have to go back to reality. I spent the rest of the afternoon driving aimlessly until the sun began to set. It was like I was trying to outrun the truth, but no matter how far I drove, I knew I couldn't escape it. I had to face what I had done. There was no running away anymore. Finally, I found myself back at my house. It was quiet now, the place where I had once shared everything with Mark. It felt empty, like a shell of the home I had known. I couldn't stay here anymore. I knew that. But I also knew I couldn't leave without saying something to him. I took a deep breath and dialed his number. It rang once, then twice before he picked up. "Liza?" Mark's voice was cold, distant. "I didn't think you'd call." "I had to," I said, my voice cracking. "Mark, I'm sorry. I don't know what else to say. I don't know how I let it get to this point." "I don't know either," he replied quietly. "You should have talked to me. We could have worked through it. But now, I don't know if I can ever trust you again." "I understand," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "I don't expect you to forgive me right now. I just need you to know that I'm sorry. I never wanted to hurt you." There was a long pause on the other end of the line. I could feel the weight of his silence. "You broke my heart, Lisa," he said finally, his voice rough. "And I don't know if I can ever get that back." "I know," I whispered. "I know." We were silent for a moment, neither of us knowing what to say next. The years we had spent together, all the love, all the memories, felt like they were slipping through my fingers. I had lost him, and I wasn't sure if I could ever get him back. "I don't know what's next for us, Lisa," Mark said, his voice softer now. "But I need time. And you need time too, to figure things out." I nodded, even though he couldn't see me. "I understand." The line went quiet, and I heard him take a deep breath. "Goodbye, Lisa?" The call ended, and I sat there, staring at the phone in my hand. I felt like I had just lost everything. Maybe I had. I didn't know what the future held. I didn't know if Mark and I would ever speak again. But for the first time, I knew I had to start over. I had to find a way to move on, even if that meant being alone. As I sat in the silence of my empty house, I realized that the hardest part wasn't the guilt or the regret. The hardest part was knowing that I couldn't undo the past. And now, I had to figure out how to live with the consequences. It's strange, isn't it? How life can feel like it's falling apart one moment, and then, just as easily, find a way to piece itself back together. You'd think that once you've shattered something, there's no going back. But I've learned that you can rebuild, just not always in the way you expect. After I hung up with Mark that night, I felt like a part of me had died. Not just the marriage, but the version of myself that I thought I had been. I had tried to be what he wanted, what I thought I was supposed to be. I had played the part of the wife, the good woman, the reliable partner. But all of that had been a lie, hadn't it? I needed to know what I wanted. I couldn't keep living for someone else. I had been living for Mark, for the image of what we were supposed to be. But in the end, it wasn't enough. I wasn't enough, and neither was he. Jack, he had been a distraction, yes. But he had also been a mirror. The man I had become when I was with him was someone I couldn't recognize. I wasn't pretending to be anything. With him, there were no expectations, no rules, just raw honesty. That's what he had given me, and in the end, that's what I needed most. So, after a few days of silence, of finding myself again, I reached out to him. I sent him a message, short, simple, and honest. I can't go back to what I was. I can't fix what's broken with Mark, but I can try to make something real with you. If you still want that. It took a few hours for him to respond. I almost didn't want to look at my phone, afraid of what his answer might be. But when I saw his name light up the screen, my heart did a little flip. I never wanted you to feel like you had to choose, Lisa. But if this is what you want, then yes, I want this too. It wasn't a perfect resolution. I wasn't healed. I wasn't even sure if I could ever truly be. But in that moment, I knew that at least I was choosing to move forward, to live my life without the weight of guilt constantly hanging over me. Jack and I took things slow. He understood that I wasn't rushing into anything. We spent time getting to know each other in ways we hadn't before. I wasn't sure where this would lead, but for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was on the right path, even if it wasn't the one I had expected to be on. It wasn't all smooth sailing. There were moments when the guilt hit me like a wave, when I wondered if I had done the right thing. But then I'd look at Jack, and I'd realize that I had made the choice that felt true to who I was in that moment. Not perfect, not without its flaws, but real. Mark and I never spoke again after that night. I heard through mutual friends that he had moved on, and I was relieved. It hurt to know that we couldn't fix what we had, but I knew that we both needed to move on. And maybe that was for the best. I don't know what the future holds for Jack and me, but I know that whatever happens, I'm no longer afraid of what comes next. I've learned that the only way to live is to be true to yourself, even when the truth is messy. Life isn't about avoiding mistakes, it's about learning from them and moving forward, even when the road is unclear. So, here I am, with Jack by my side. Maybe we're not perfect, maybe this whole thing is a mess, but for the first time in a long time, I'm happy. And for me, that's enough.